Deep in the heart of the dense, untamed forest, beyond where any trail dared to lead, there lay forgotten ruins. They weren't marked on any map, nor mentioned in any local lore. For generations, the forest had been avoided by the villagers due to strange occurrences, whispers in the wind, sudden chills, and the eerie sense of being watched. One fateful evening, a group of adventurous friends, intrigued by the mystery, ventured into the woods, determined to uncover the secrets buried within. As they pushed deeper into the forest, the trees grew taller, their branches intertwining, blotting out the fading sunlight. The air was thick, not just with humidity, but with a foreboding presence. After hours of walking, they stumbled upon the ruins. Moss-covered stones formed the remnants of what once might have been a grand structure. Broken archways jutted from the earth, and strange symbols, worn by time, were etched into the crumbling walls. The place seemed ancient, far older than anything they had imagined. But the ruins were not empty. As they explored, strange sounds began to echo from the shadows. Whispers that grew louder, forming indistinct words. One of the friends froze, staring at the symbols on the walls. His face drained of color as he recognized something in old family legend passed down through generations. The ruins, he whispered, weren't just abandoned. They were a place of sacrifice, a tomb for something far more ancient and malevolent than they could have ever imagined. Too late, they realized they weren't alone in the forest. Something had been watching them all along, waiting for the moment they crossed into its territory. And now, the ruins were waking up. The air around the ruins grew heavy, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. The whispers swirled into a frenzy, but they weren't coming from the wind anymore. They were coming from beneath the ground. The friends huddled together, their flashlights flickering as the temperature dropped sharply. The one who had recognized the symbols of Tham began to back away, his eyes wide with terror. "We need to leave." Now, he stammered, but his voice barely carried over the ominous murmur that filled the air. Suddenly, the earth beneath them trembled, and a crack split open the ground near the ruins. A deep, guttural sound rumbled from the fissure, something primal, something alive. The friends stood paralyzed as cold mist poured out from the crack, curling through the air like fingers reaching out for them. "Run!" one of them shouted, breaking the spell that held them frozen. They bolted for the tree line, but the forest seemed to shift around them. The path they had taken disappeared, replaced by thick, gnarled roots that tangled their feet. The mist followed them, relentless, and with it came shadows, figures that moved just beyond the reach of their flashlights. They weren't human, at least not anymore. Their forms were distorted, like they had been shaped by the forest itself, their eyes glowing faintly with a hunger that had long been denied. As the group struggled to escape, they heard a voice low, ancient, and full of malice. "You've disturbed the cursed grounds. You cannot leave now." Ethan, now trailing behind the others, felt a sharp tug on his ankle. He looked down in horror to see a hand, skeletal and covered in dirt, gripping him tightly. It was pulling him toward the crack in the earth, toward the ruins. He screamed, clawing at the ground, but the pull was too strong. The others turned just in time to see him vanish into the mist. Panic surged through the remaining friends. They ran faster, their hearts pounding in their chests, but the forest was closing in. The shadows drew nearer, the whispers growing louder until they were deafening. It wasn't just a place of sacrifice they had stumbled upon. It was a prison for something far older and darker than they could have imagined. And now it was awake. The remaining friends, breathless and terrified, could barely see through the thick mist that now consumed the forest. Every tree seemed to loom closer, the branches twisting unnaturally, blocking their way. They could no longer hear Ethan's screams, only the relentless whispers that grew louder, more coherent, filling their minds with dreadful promises of doom. "We can't outrun this," Sarah shouted, her voice cracking with fear. "We have to find another way." Desperation overtook reason. Mark, the most skeptical of the group, scanned the ruins again, his thoughts racing. "The symbols," he said, gasping for air. "There's some kind of seal. We woke it up, maybe we can trap it again. Sarah and the others exchanged panicked glances, but there was no time to debate. The figures in the mist were closing in, their distorted shapes now clear in the dim light. They were once human, villagers who had ventured too close to the ruins centuries ago, now bound to the ancient force that controlled this cursed land. Without another word, they turned back to the ruins, hearts pounding. The ground continued to quake, but something new had emerged from the crack in the earth, a faint, unnatural light, pulsing rhythmically from deep below. It seemed to call to them, beckoning them closer. Mark moved first, rushing toward the symbols engraved on the broken stones. We have to figure out what they mean. Maybe if we reverse what was done here, are you crazy? Jake hissed, eyes wide. That thing already took Ethan. What if it's trying to lure us back? Mark ignored him. He knelt beside the largest stone slab, tracing the ancient markings with his fingers. The whispers grew louder, now forming words they could almost understand. Mark's voice trembled. It's a ritual, a binding ritual. But it's broken. Sarah joined him, her mind racing. How do we fix it? How do we seal it back? Before Mark could answer, a shriek pierced the air, a twisted, inhuman sound that sent shivers down their spines. The mist parted briefly, revealing a monstrous figure emerging from the crack. It towered over them, its form shifting like a shadow, eyes burning with ancient rage. It wasn't just a spirit, they were dealing with something far worse, a dark entity that had been sealed away for a reason. Jake stumbled backward, his flashlight flickering as the entity advanced. We're out of time. Sarah's heart pounded as she looked at the symbols, realizing they were incomplete. There had to be something missing, something that had kept this creature imprisoned for so long. Mark, we need to finish the self. There's got to be a way. But before they could act, the creature lunged at them, its dark tendrils snaking toward the group. It was faster than anything they had ever seen, moving with impossible speed, fueled by centuries of hatred. Just as the tendrils reached for them, Sarah's eyes locked onto an unbroken stone in the corner of the ruins, untouched by time or nature. The missing piece. Without thinking, she sprinted toward it, heart racing, her fingers brushing against the cool, ancient surface. The second she touched it, a searing pain shot through her hand, but she didn't let go. The stone began to glow, pulsing with the same eerie light from the crack below. The whispers intensified, but this time they seemed to scream in protest, as if something had gone wrong with their plan. Suddenly, the tendrils recoiled, and the creature let out an ear-splitting roar. The ground trembled violently, and the mist swirled wildly, as though the forest itself was being ripped apart. Sarah pressed her palm harder into the stone, her vision blurring as the ruins around them seemed to shimmer, bending the very fabric of reality. Mark realized what she was doing. She's completing the seal. With a final surge of energy, the light from the stone exploded outward, flooding the forest with a blinding radiance. The tendrils vanished, and the creature shrieked one last time before it was sucked back into the crack in the earth, sealed once more. The ground stilled. The whispers faded. The mist lifted in the sudden silence. Sarah collapsed to her knees, exhausted and trembling. The ruins, once foreboding, were now lifeless, their dark power diminished. Jake and Mark rushed to her side, their faces pale with shock and relief. It's over, Mark whispered, though his voice held no triumph, only the weight of what they had witnessed. But as they looked back toward the crack, now sealed once again, a cold realization dawned on them. The ruins might have been quiet now, but something darker had awakened, something that wouldn't rest forever, and it would wait until the seal broke again.